Hey, welcome back. All right, so this should be the last tutorial for the cannons. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to make it so that we can adjust the gravity and the velocity of the projectile inside the viewport while we're creating the game. So in other words, it's going to be a variable that we have access to inside of the viewport. And the reason why I decided to do this was because as I started kind of setting up the demonstration for how to use each of these assets in the game, I decided that being able to change the velocity might be able to increase the usage of the cannons in the different places you might want to put it. So let me go ahead and walk you through what I'm talking about. All right, so here is the scene, and I have several cannons along the wall right here. All of them are pretty much set up for the same base 2500 and 0.1 for the gravity. This one I have set for 3500, and I'm going to put this back at 0.1. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. So here is the cannon firing volume that we created in the last tutorial. This one's got 3 cannons on it, so it's going to just be these 3 that are going to fire. So let me go ahead and hit play and show you what this should look like. The cannons, besides the one in the middle pointed right at me, should all be set up to hit right about at the base of that wall right there. And we can see that they hit along the wall. Now this one should be shooting straight down at me. And if I back up a little bit, you'll see that it'll shoot even further. Stay back in the volume. There we go. So now it comes all the way to the back of the wall back here because all I did was change the velocity on this one. This cannon has the velocity of 3,500, whereas these have 2,500. It seems like a pretty easy thing to do and make it so that you have a little bit more flexibility as you're designing your game. So let's go ahead and take a real quick look at the blueprint that we did this in. This is what it's going to look like inside of our cannon. What we've had to do is we're going to set some initial speeds using the projectile movement. Now remember, the projectile movement was this default node setup that's inside of the components for where we did our blueprint for our projectile. So you can see all this is just the basic stuff. And then here for the cannon, when we actually spawn the projectile right here, we can pull off from the return value and get the additional information that we're going to need to be able to increase the velocity of this particular cannonball. All right, so we go ahead and save that, move it out of the way, and let's jump in and set it up for ourselves in our own cannons. So this cannon right here, if I go to my wall cannons, so open up my blueprints, and then from the event graph, remember we have the spawn projectile function that we created. You can either double click here or you can double click here and open it up, and this will get us into the spawning of our projectile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these right here and I'm going to drag them way out to the right to give myself plenty of room to work. Now the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create some variables. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in, and we're going to want to make sure it's a float. Okay, and if it's not a float, we'll just go ahead and type in the name first and then change it to float. So we're going to set projectile speed. Okay, that's going to be the first one. We're going to open the eye up on that one. Make sure you change it to a float, and then you're going to compile it. And our initial speed that we set up, remember, was going to be 2,500. So that's the default speed that we're using for our cannons. Now the next one we're going to set up is we're going to set max speed. We need to change both of these in order for this to work correctly. So we're going to go ahead and compile, and then we're going to change that max speed. I'm going to put something crazy like 15,000 in there because that's going to be the max speed. We probably won't ever use that, but you might. Who knows? And then the last thing we're going to do is we're also going to give you the option to be able to change your projectile gravity. So we're going to set projectile gravity. And we're going to open up the eye for that one, compile it, and we're going to change this to 0.1 over here. And if we jump back into our projectile, you'll see that what we've just done is with the projectile movement selected, Here's initial speed and max speed, and then this is our projectile gravity scale. These are all things that we've set. Now here, I set this at max speed of 10,000. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 15,000 right in here, just to be on the safe side, make sure they don't conflict. All right, so now go back to our cannon, back into our spawn projectile where we just made these variables. And the very first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to select this return value off the spawn projectile blueprint class. And I'm going to release that, and I'm going to type in projectile, if I spell it correctly, movement. We want projectile movement. So we're going to get projectile movement. And from here, we're going to first, I'm going to go ahead and break this connection up here. So I'm going to hold the Alt button, hover over that pin, and break it. So the first thing we're going to want to get is we're going to set, so we're going to type in speed, because if you type anything else, it really doesn't come up. We're going to set our initial speed. So we're going to set initial speed. We'll plug that one in here. And your initial speed is going to be the set projectile speed right here. We're going to get that. So we're going to put our variable in here, the one where we have the speed of 2,500. Then the next thing we're going to need is we're going to need to get our project. So we're going to type in speed again. And this time we're going to get our set max speed. Clean it up just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this. And we're going to actually get max speed from our variables. Put that right there. Here's a cool thing. If you select both of these and you hit Q, you can get them to line up. If you're, OCD like I am. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull off this pin here. And we're going to get gravity. And we're going to set projectile gravity scale. All right, so we've got those initial ones set up. And actually we need to go ahead and grab out our variable for that. You plug that in as well. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the return value. And we're going to drag off of it. And we're going to get forward. So we want the get forward projectile vector for the projectile. So get forward vector, and it should look something like this when it pops out. And what we're going to do is we're going to now get the multiply. So pull out from there, and we're going to multiply that value. So we need to figure out what the forward vector of our projectile is. So we're going to get that forward projectile, and we want to multiply it by the speed that we want to set for our initial speed here. Because what's going to happen is it's going to have a default rate of 2,500 when it gets spawns, because that's what we have it set for as the generic one inside of our blueprint. Once it spawns, we want to make a change, and this is the change that we're going to make, is we're going to multiply it by the individual initial speed for each of our cannons, so that projectile will take on the speed of that cannon. And now once we have that, we also need to then, from here, from the projectile movement, we're going to need to drag out again, and we're going to need to set the velocity. So set velocity, and it should be this little yellow button right here because it's a velocity button, so it's a vector. Okay, and we're going to drag out from here and connect that in. Clean this up a little bit. And then we're going to take this pin, the output of the multiplication, connect it in there. And then we're going to connect this output here into our spawn sound location. We're going to compile it, and we're going to save it, and we're going to go into our sandbox, and we're going to test this out. So now there is the set max speed right there, set at 15,000. So this first one right here, I'm going to set it so the max speed is going to be 10,000, something ridiculously fast. And then these other ones I'm going to leave at 2,500. And then the max speed is already set at 15,000, and our projectile gravities are 0.1. So I'm going to back up. Actually, I need to be in the volume here. So I'm going to hit play. What should happen is this one on the end should be going crazy fast. And it is. Okay, so that should be it for this tutorial. And hopefully you were able to get through it pretty quick. Now we are able to adjust the velocity of our cannons inside of our game so that you can have different speeds for your different cannons as well. Even if you decide to have different types of, because you can easily take that blueprint and modify that blueprint to have different models and do different things with them. So you have different types of cannons maybe, and then you can have different cannons with different velocities if you wanted to. So that's one cool thing you can kind of do with all of this. All right, so again, if you have any questions, please put them down in the comments section. I will get back to you. If you like this tutorial, please make sure you hit the like button for me, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again. Thanks for playing, and I'll see you next time.